today's lesson, we're going to do a little painting using color theory and learning how to mix colors. This is a really simple project to do, but it's really fun to do, and I think the end results are really beautiful. And if you're really interested in painting or using any medium with color, I think this is a great way to start. And Amelia's going to work with me today, and she's going to make her own. For this drawing project, I first did a sketch in pencil. I like to do things in pencil first. I pretty much start out almost all of my artwork in pencil, whether it's printmaking or painting or drawing, just because with pencil you can easily erase things and fix things to get them to where you want. So I started my drawing with a pencil sketch. And the most important thing about this drawing is that you want to draw your glass vessels so that they overlap. So everything that you draw should go on top of the other thing you just drew. And that will be the most important thing about the color story in this art project. So now that I have drawn my drawing with pencil, I'm going to take a black crayon and just draw over the pencil. In addition to drawing these glass vessels, I wanted the vessels to be sitting on something. So I took a long ruler and drew 2 lines to make it look like they're sitting on a shelf. Okay, I have one more vessel to outline with my black crayon. Okay, so there we have it. We have all the vessels and the shelves outlined with black. So now we're ready to start painting. I'm going to use watercolors for my painting. I like watercolors for this for a couple of reasons. For one, because I'm using a wax crayon for the outline, the watercolors will stay inside the lines for the most part because the wax resists the water. Watercolors come in all different kinds. I have several here. I have this one with many different colors. Amelia has this really cool one that each of the color families slide out on these different sections. And then of course, you know, there's your regular watercolors that come in a strip like this. Some come in tubes, some come in cubes. They're all different kinds. So you can use any kind you like. If you don't have watercolors, you can use markers. You could even use crayons. You could use colored pencils. Anything that produces color you can use, but I really like watercolors for this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make each vessel a different primary color where it doesn't overlap. And the primary colors are what, Amelia?
Yellow, red, and blue. Yellow,
red, and blue, right. And so I'm going to start by doing that. So let's see, I'm going to use these watercolors, I guess, because it has a lot of nice colors. And because it's watercolors, you have to wet your brush. Okay, get your brush nice and wet. And ooh, there's a little piece of dust in there. Your paint nice and wet. And I'll just start painting inside the vessel, but first in a place where it doesn't overlap with another vessel. I like to pretend that behind my vessels there's a light, maybe a window. Maybe these are vases and glasses that sit in a window, or maybe on a shelf in a home where there's light behind them. Because I think glass looks the prettiest when there's light shining through it. In addition to painting this vessel red, where there's a top here where the oval is, where the vessel would be open, I'm going to paint this a little bit lighter. Now, on my watercolors, I have different lots of different colors. So I could just take pink. So I'll take one of these pinks here and fill this in. So it looks a little bit lighter than the red I filled in on the main part of the vessel. Now, if you don't have the variety of colors that I have, you can achieve this lighter color in a few ways. You can use more water and less paint. If there is white paint in your palette, you can mix the color that you're using, in this case it would be red, with white. And that way it kind of gives more of the illusion of a hollow object, because in the main part you'd be seeing the front and the back shining through together. On the top part you'd only be seeing one side where the light would be shining through, and that's why it would appear to be lighter. So that's why I'm going to put a little pink up here, just to give it that illusion. Now I'm going to start on the vessel next to the one I just painted. So this one's red, so I've decided I'm going to paint this one yellow. So I'm going to fill in all the parts that do not overlap with the other vessels with yellow. Okay, so now I have two vessels painted. I have one red and one yellow. So when the red and the yellow overlap, and if you're imagining that this is glass and the light is shining through it, Amelia, what color do you think that overlap is going to be?
Orange. And since I painted blue and red, mine's going to turn into purple.
Right, because red and yellow, when they're mixed together, make orange, and blue and red, when they're mixed together, make purple. So you can do this two ways. You can take the red and the yellow that you just used, say you could paint this in red and then color over it with yellow, but I'm just going to do the easy thing and just dip my paintbrush into some orange here.
I'm not going to do the easy thing.
And I'm going to just paint this with orange. Now, I encourage you to experiment and try it both ways and see which way you like doing it better. So as I continue to color in my vessels, I'm going to continue to experiment with my colors. So right here I have a blue vessel and the red vessel, and I painted in with purple, but I kind of felt like that purple didn't quite look right to me. So I'm going to use some of the red that I used in the red vessel and mix it in a little bit more. Make it look a little bit more like it belongs to both vessels. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of the blue in as well. And just experiment with the colors. I think this is a really fun thing to do, to learn about mixing your paints. Because when you're painting and you're using lots of colors and you're trying to match colors that you find in nature or in things around your house, usually you have to mix the colors, right? Usually things aren't exactly the color on your palette. You have to mix colors together to make them the color that the object really is. Now, I've been mostly working in primary colors and then adding the secondary colors that the primary colors make when they overlap. Now I'm going to try making a vessel a secondary color. So right now I have this blue primary color, glass, and then I'm going to paint this vessel green, so that when the green and the blue overlap, what kind of a color do you think that might make?
I don't know.
Well, what colors are you used to make green?
Well, yellow and blue.
Yellow and blue, right? So green has some blue in it.
Like a turquoise maybe?
Yeah, it might kind of be like a turquoise, right? Like a greenish, bluish color.
Yeah.
So let's give that a try. All right, now that I've painted my green vessel and I've painted my blue vessel, I'm actually going to mix the colors here because I don't know if I have an exact color that would make the blue plus the green. So I'll add in my green, and I'm going to clean off my brush here, wipe off the extra water, and then I'll add in some blue And the blue kind of overpowers the green a little bit. So I think what I'll do is I'll do another layer of green because I really want both colors to come through. Now here where I've painted this vessel green and this vessel yellow, I'm mixing my yellows and my greens together because I don't really have a color that's going to match this exactly. Now the green is kind of overpowering to the yellow, so I may have to do this a few times to get it the way I want it. I started out by painting yellow in the background where it overlaps, and then I put some green over it, and I'm going to put some yellow over it again. And now with watercolors, the paper can get very, very fragile. So you don't want to have too much water when you're doing the overlap. And you may even want to wait for it to dry a little bit before you go back in and overlap the colors in case the paper is getting a little bit too fragile and thin. But don't be afraid to overlap the colors again and again until you get them to a color that you really like and you really like the way it looks. Now that I have all my glass vessels painted in, I just have to finish up by painting the shelves that I drew. I think I'm going to paint mine black. Of course, you could paint them any color you like. Paint them brown, maybe like they're wood, or a color because you like the color. Or you could even leave them white. You know, maybe the glass vessels are sitting on a clear glass shelf and the light that's coming through looks white. Now that I've painted all my vessels and the shelves that the vessels sit on, I think my painting's done and I think it looks pretty good. I really like this project a lot because it teaches you a lot about mixing colors, and if you're interested in learning more about painting, this is a great way to start. Now, if you had to use markers or colored pencils or crayons instead of watercolors because you didn't have watercolors at home, I wanted to just give you a tip. Now, I have a scrap piece of paper here, and I have a red colored pencil and a yellow colored pencil. Now, like I did in the first one where I had a red vessel and a blue vessel, and I just took purple paint instead of mixing the colors to make the purple, you could do that with your markers or your crayons or your colored pencils. That would be easy to do. But if you want to try to mix your colors, for example, with these colored pencils, I start out very lightly with one of the colors, in this case red. And then I take my yellow and I go over it very lightly. And as you can see, it's starting to turn orange. And so you just keep doing this lightly over and over again until you start to get the color that you really, really want. And it takes a little time, but if you're going to do this with colored pencils or with crayons, or even if you have pastels or oil pastels and you really want to try mixing the colors, there's no reason why you can't do this with a dry medium like pencils or crayons instead of a wet medium like paints. And so see, I can still make orange even if I don't have an orange colored pencil. So I would encourage you to try that too with this kind of a project. Also, if you're not comfortable drawing things like vases and other glassware, try shapes. Try squares or rectangles or stars or hearts and overlap them. And use the black crayon with the watercolors, or use whatever medium you have at home and try it out. This is such a fun way to learn how to mix colors, and it also gives you a really good end result. Something that's really beautiful and with colors that you made yourself. And I think those are the best kind of colors, not just the colors you get right out of the box. So if you want to try this project and you want to share it with us, you can email it to our email address at info@catskillartsociety.org, and we will share it on our social media pages so that everybody can see your project. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.